Hello, beauties. And hello, it's so lovely to see and know that you guys are here and that you're here watching today. I'm just going to send a little copal into your space and just give the basic guidelines. So, hello, everyone. So, the basic guidelines of this space is believe it, receive it, leave it, or lend it. So use your own personal discernment with whatever comes up, because there are a lot of universal truths that come up. So knowing that even if you haven't asked the question, perhaps your answer will come. But if there's something that comes up in this reading that really doesn't sit with you and your internal guidance is telling you otherwise, then really honor that, okay? Because I want you to first and foremost honor your internal North Star. Secondly, how this works is you can ask questions for yourself, humanity, or the planet. And I'll do my best with the help of my spirit guides, the Inviisbles, to answer that for you. And so, of course, depending on how our time goes, we might not have enough space for everyone, but we will do our best. Hello, Nazare. I'm doing really well. I mean, it's a rainy day out here in the IBC, but it's feeling nourishing. All right, so just sending this bell to wherever you are, and then we're going to go in with the first question, the first theme, which is going to be from me. Here we go. So my first question is regarding being able to receive what we need. And so the theme would be being receptive, and where in our lives does it, it's raining in the UK too, where in our lives can our capacity to receive be blocked or hindered by our potentially familial upbringing, by beliefs that we've inherited or beliefs that we've created from different situations in our life, and how to explore systems of moving through these blocks so that we truly can receive so that we can give, which is one of my greatest themes, is how to receive so that you can actually give more. So I'm going to see what the Inviisbles have to say about if there's anyone that is in a place right now where they're really needing to receive more, but coming about different blocks in that process. And then we'll get to the questions that are on the thread. So here we go. It's one thing to count your blessings, to come into a place of gratitude of all that you've received in this life, all the friendships, all the experiences, all the circumstances that have led you to where you are now. This is important. But when you get to that point where it's time to create space to be more receptive, now that can be more complex, because it's in that space that's created that the blocks can come forward. Okay? And so if you're in a place right now in your life where there is a desire to excel yourself to a new level of expression, a new level of creativity, a new level of being in service, and you're noticing that there's key elements missing in the formula to get you to that. It could be as simple as not having the financial resources to invest in the platform to be able to get you in that direction. It could also be just not being able to really breach those conversations, those crucial conversations with people in your life. That once you bring the conversation up, Yes, it's as though the egg is in the skillet. Things are cooking, things are active. And it doesn't necessarily mean that every time you bring a conversation up, you're going to be met with what you're seeking. But that's not reason enough to stop and hold back. Because a lot of the blocks around receiving require a level of initiative and assertiveness to almost pierce or press through them with a diligence, with a commitment to something that's greater than yourself. That's the key to receiving. Perhaps you can use your own sense of, how do we describe this? I'm kind of popping out. They're kind of trying to get me to show you this idea of it's very easy to use logic to get in the way of why it's not important for you to receive. You know, why you can make do with what's available. And this has come up recently too in a session that I offered, is that, you know, how it can be really easy to, you know, speak to that block as though it's really not important to move through it because you're capable of truly making the most of every situation. And so the thing about receiving, kind of what they're showing me, is that in order to receive, you have to understand that, or one has to understand that there is a level of committing to having more income of creations of energy into your life, with the commitment though that energy is going to want to turn into something, right? And I find that for me, when I'm receiving, when it's done in a very healthy way, I get to that place where I'm capable of actually turning that receiving energy into giving, right? Once I'm replenished from it. So that's a little bit about that. And so let's move on and see. We've got a question here from Nazare. We've said it's also raining. And Nazare says, how are you today? Which I answered. And anything for the Inviisibles for you today. Blessings. All right. Let's see what they have to say. And also for anyone popping on, just remembering that these are also questions for yourself, humanity, or the planet. And if there is a private question that you don't want your name associated to, then you can send it to me in a private message and I'll do my best to find it. If for whatever reason I'm not getting to your question, and I really should have been, it's not because I'm consciously trying to avoid it. I just have not seen it. And so if you want to say in your mailbox or something like that, that'd be really helpful because I do wish to get to everyone's questions. All right, so this is for Nazare. Here we go. Don't button up your collar until you're really ready to meet the world, until you're really ready to go out. The sense of purpose, the sense of knowingness. And what we mean by don't button your collar is that sometimes it's important to understand where are you at in the phases of your life, right? Where are you at in the cycles and the rhythms before you? And with buttoning the collar usually symbolizes that you're fully ready to be composed for the world. And what if that composure is actually, or that the lack of, that kind of popped together. Let me describe it. They're showing me this image of sometimes in life, the feeling or the desire to be in a certain level of composure to greet the world can actually be, can get in the way of truly just greeting the world, whether or not you're feeling composed or not. And how it's in that vulnerability and in that greeting of the world, just as you are, right? In your vulnerable state, in your uncomposed state, in your pajamas, that part of that actually builds your relationship with the world. That there's beings that wish to see the more, I mean, relaxed is one way, but not necessarily, like more of these parts of yourself. And maybe this would be something to explore in your life is, are there maybe certain relationships you have or certain ways that you present yourself to the world that might just be painting a limited perspective of the depth of who you are and what you're truly interested in or wanting to engage in, or how, or what kind of accessibility you have or people have with different parts of yourself, you know? And so in this moving from these phases, and mind you, I am all about composure. I even did my hair today. But in these phases of understanding, where are you at in your soul's expression to the world? And is that expression that's most important actually just being in a very uncomposed state? You know, just being raw. And maybe there's some relationships you're already thinking of that could maybe use a little bit more like the one thing that I keep pointing at is this feeling that there may be opportunities or dynamics that are not necessarily being experienced. So understanding the message. Oh, good. You should say that. Yeah, he's understanding it. Because it's going to help almost create a more rounded experience of you to other people and of you to the world. And that in the same time, how the world reflects itself is that in that more rounded, in that more full expression of these other parts of yourself with the world and with people, maybe somebody in your life or some people in your life, then you actually start creating almost a ripple effect with Creator, saying that you want to also meet other people in these places as well, right? So it goes both ways. Is being open to creating space for maybe relationships or connections that you can just call up and say, I'm coming over right now, or people can have that. Hello, Donald. So I'm going to stop with that, Nazare, and blessings on you just not buttoning the collar all the way up. Just try that for a moment and see how that goes. Thank you so much for the question. And hello, everyone popping on. I'm just going to check my private messages. And see if we have any messages. Otherwise, let's see. All right, so if we don't have any questions, let's see. I'm gonna scroll down and see. I'm not seeing any private messages. All right, so I'm gonna actually ask my own question. And so this question is, while I'm waiting for other questions. So this is a question that is going to be for humanity. Oh, great. And then we're going to get to you. And so the question that I have for humanity is there a way or a focus point of sending our prayers that would be the most beneficial at this time? So what is something that's closer to the root of suffering on the planet right now? And how can we bring that into our focus point, into our prayers? So I'm going to ask that, and then we're going to get to you, Frankie. So here we go. One of the key foundations of health is understanding, and we're talking about planetary health. We're talking about health that ripples into humanity. But it's understanding when a balance has been distorted, okay? When there can be confusion or misleading interpretations around how balanced something may perceive, like a mask of appeared balance on top of destruction, confusion. And one of the things that we want you to focus on, and we would encourage that humanity focus on more, is taking that fire extinguisher and putting out the fires that are closest to you. All right? And when we're talking about these fires, we're talking about where in your life, and you can explore depending on what your sensitivities or your passions are towards. Are there political fires? Are there injustices that are very close to home? And what can you do on a small level or on a big level to put your voice, to put your actions towards these injustices, these out of control fires? These can also be fires connected to relationships, to anger, to resentment, to rage between each other. And we're not saying that having anger, having these larger, more impactful emotions, or impactful in their own way, are not necessary for the wealth and the health of beings. But when they're out of control, just like fire plays a very important role in cleansing and clearing and renewing the earth, it also can ravage it when out of control. And so if you're noticing that there are fires of emotions that you continue to feed within yourself, whether it's a thought that brings on, stimulates being upset, being raged, especially around another person in this quality, what can you do to honor these emotions while dissipating them from your own body? And if it requires creating or closing that connection, then that would be you putting out that fire. And the last fire that we would encourage you to support putting out, if this is something that speaks to you, is this out of control fire that we like to think of as disbelief. Disbelief in your purpose. Disbelief in Creator or the essence that is beyond you. This fire of isolation that so many on this planet feel. If that is near you, then do your best to put that one out, because it destroys with such a force. There's no need to create a life of feeling that you are, that isolation is imposed on you by simply being alive. This must change. Because it's isolation that has created so many decisions that are not really seeing the greater whole. They're kind of popping out. They're showing me this image of, even with things like clear cutting, they're showing me that, a lot of the people behind those blades, behind those, those death swipes are there because they're trying to feed their family. There's this feeling, they're showing like this, it's almost like this feeling of even isolated in supporting your family or supporting yourself, like these feelings of isolation, and that this is something that is so toxic and has spread across this planet at such a rate that it can almost seem that to have a collective collaborative presence of support on a global scale with all beings greatest potential in mind is challenging, right, to have. So that being said, I'm going to move on here. And so the next, oh my gosh, what happened? So the next question that we have is, am I able to ask a question here? Yes, you are. Hey, Frankie, this is for you. And so Frankie's asking, I want to ask, how can I best support my daughter? Okay, let's see what they have to say. And blessings to everyone who's watching. If any of you have daughters too, put a little comment. Oops, all us mamas or papas, and knowing that there's, our children are are such amazing gifts, and how to support that gift in them is such a great lesson, because I feel like it changes too. I feel like what might be supportive when they're a certain age or at a certain development might actually, they might have outgrown it. They might be growing into some other desire from us. So being constantly this creativity that's required from us, and this deep listening and sensitivity, and creating opportunities to explore these possibilities that maybe our children haven't tasted yet, so that they can also show us through their experiences what speaks to them. Oh, hi, Albina. Nice to know you're here again. And everyone else popping on, feel free to put a message on the thread. And then if you want to put a message in a private message, do it in my box. All right, so this is for Frankie, Frankie's daughter. Here we go. Or how to support her daughter. You need to listen to her needs, but listen to those needs that want to move, those needs that want to run, those needs that want to dance, those needs that hold and represent momentum. Because in her life, and we're going to just more connect with you and your responsibility, is that we see that there is potentially a lack of trust in how you listen to the momentum that your children are requiring. But when we're saying a lack of trust, that's only what it may appear to be on the outside. In a deeper level, maybe it doesn't, right? But on a deeper level, it's actually just a discouragement about the outcomes of choices. But that these outcomes of choices do not mean that you are not trustworthy in your instincts. And why we're bringing this about is that your connection with your instincts is actually one of the greatest things that you can do to support your daughter, which in many ways we see that you have been. But that she's holding blueprints from you on how to listen to her instincts. And a lot of the time with children, those familial set patterns really start coming in around puberty. Okay? And some before, but right now, building trust by also remembering and that your instincts, the choices that have been made, aren't necessarily always going to show you the fruit from that seed, possibly even for a long time. And if that's the case, what is it in your life what is it in your life that needs to be reassessed? Because with instincts in themselves are coming from different places. And this is the important teaching here. So people say there's gut instincts. There's instincts that are confused because they're coming from the mind. We like to more think of those as impulses. There are desires which can be confused as an instinctual action to be had. Okay? Does that make sense? So knowing that sometimes if we desire something so much, taking action on the desire can be confused with instincts. Whereas it is not necessarily important to take action on all our desires. But there is a beautiful patience and surrender to the ebb and flow of your own life's patterns and of your family's patterns. And knowing that for her, what's getting confused, and this is what we feel we do have access to, that her higher self is giving us permission, is that she wants to understand where she can go when she's feeling this sense of loneliness. And in this experience, it might not even be, it may be an empathic connection, but that this feeling wants to have more of a network to hold her. Okay? But we're not talking about just a network of children. There's specifically potentially a mentor that could be really beneficial to her. And this mentor is someone that they might say speaks in the language of the earth. So really listens and knows how to speak. Oh, they're kind of popping out. They're kind of showing me this image of, I don't know if it would be like herbalism or like working with plants, or I'm seeing like somebody that could support her, and that could be you too, right? But it does feel like it could be helpful to also have somebody else, maybe a dear friend of yours that works really well with plants, kind of come in, or going to like some, I don't know, a herbalist, but it feels more like a tangible, like being able to go on plant walks or being able to make medicines. And I feel like there's something about creating and connecting with the plant realm, but also bringing in the magic of it too, bringing in those communications with these plants and listening to them and singing their songs, and like ways of working with plants feels like it could be helpful. And there's something in that too. They're kind of showing me that why this ties back to her wanting to move forward and her wanting momentum and to like create. It's like to be going somewhere. Is it feels like for the meantime working with, and that could also be like growing plants, like something about seeing an evolution in the plant world. So whether it's just an evolution of like going and harvesting a bunch of nettles and, drying them out or making nettle teas or balms, and maybe that's something that she could even like create a little, I don't know if there's like markets or something, she could even like do a little witchy market booth or something in the future. But it feels like that could be a fun direction for her, potentially. And also if she could use those knees. So get her active, get her running more, or however she can just engage this momentum in her life on a physical level in her body as well. might be helpful. Maybe rollerblading. All right, thank you. So moving on. Hello, by the way, everyone that has popped on. All right, so we got Alpina here. I'm gonna see if there's any private messages that I'm not seeing. All right. Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you. Where did my phone go? That's maybe the best way of seeing. And then you'll be next. Okay. So, Alvina. So Albina says, I would like to ask if there is a new message on my current life path. I feel a little lost. All right, let's see what they have to say. That's interesting. I almost feel like I've mentioned this to you before, but maybe I haven't. Tell me if I have. But they're showing me this image of this tourniquet. They're called tourniquets, I believe, which is like an old world kind of, maybe an older word for like back in the war, back in times when people are, this is what I'm pretty sure it is. If you've been bleeding a bunch, a tourniquet's like taking some fabric and like, winding it really, really tight and then kind of like wrapping it around and trying to hold the, stop the blood from totally escaping. So it's like creating this tight cinch. But they're showing me that there's something in relation to having this, like, it's almost like the image I'm seeing is it could go both directions, but one of the directions would be that this compressing of energy, like just with a tourniquet, is there for a very good reason. It's there to, well, the blood's not just pouring out of you, and you can just have have moments for it to start letting it coagulate. It's a part of a process. But then if you keep it on, then when it's not needed, then you're actually creating a lack of blood flow. So it's going in the opposite direction. It's going in a direction where it's not actually supporting you in the long run anymore. And so maybe that's something to explore, either one direction, which is like you've got a big old leak and you need to put a tourniquet on it. But the other, oh, hey, Tally. And then the other option would be perhaps there's somewhere in your life where maybe you've slowed down the output of energy because it felt like it was moving too fast, or it was out of control, or you're finding that you were not fully like well, or your approach with maybe it's an offering or a way that you were expressing yourself with it. They're kind of showing me like, see what they have to say more. It's a little complex, but in relation to your direction. Why we're bringing this up is that there's energy that's available to you, but because of how you've addressed it in the past, by asking it to slow down, in that slowing down of this energy, it's actually been confused as stunted growth. But what we're saying and what we're seeing is that your capacity to actually bloom and blossom in this area of your life is very possible. And one of the areas that we're seeing is like, I don't understand what they're describing. It's I don't know if it's like I'm seeing, I don't know if it's a newspaper or there's this image of some sort of, like I'm seeing all these people kind of working at this, I don't know, a magazine or newspaper or some sort of like place of expression. And so I don't even know if this is like fully in your life, but I'm wondering, have you ever, like, what's your relationship with like writing or journalism or, this is a total 180 from what you've been doing, but I'm just curious. Have you ever been interested in that? Or have any people in your life or your parents? And this is just my interpretation of what I'm seeing, which is like it feels like people coming together and working on some sort of production, or it's like there's a lot of busyness in it, but that there's a unified end result. Nothing now. Okay. And so I'm trying to understand if that's the direction that they're trying to get at, or if it's just as simple as this need to have collaboration, like this need to put yourself in an environment where there is this like almost this natural like bustling energy, this like, because the feeling I have, like the images they're showing me of like this bustling newsroom, but it's not like a lot of people. I'm seeing like maybe 7 people. It's not like a huge thing, but I'm seeing like all these people that have like their little zones, but they kind of come together and like almost like I see big tables and like I don't know, drafting tables. There's this feeling of people coming together, but having their own kind of like maybe the symbolism of this newsroom too is everyone's a journalist or there's different aspects. You have a fear of writing. Maybe you should really get into it, because they're showing like what they're showing with this tourniquet image is that it's almost like what they were saying before is this feeling that, or this perceived image that you don't, like if you kept a tourniquet on for a really long time, you'd actually lose blood flow and your hand would go numb, and your hand's not useful anymore. And so if you forgot that you put the tourniquet on, then all of a sudden you're like, wow, my hand's not useful, right? Like, what am I gonna do with this? Instead of remembering like, oh, I need to take this thing that's blocking my creativity or blocking my capacity to use my hand off so that I can really create again. And so maybe there is something to explore, like especially if you're fearful of writing. That's really exciting because the image that they're showing me, their image they're showing me is that it's this, whatever this part of your life is that maybe has appeared to be not working or is actually has a lot of available energy if you just allow whatever's repressing it to move, whatever's been like slowing that energy down, and that energy is capable of actually really, almost like the image they're showing me is like coming out more developed than you would really believe. And so I mean, this is something that I've experienced in my life, especially after having a daughter, after being, going through labor and just being in like new mom phase for a long time, and kind of putting certain expressions of myself out because I'm an art, I have many expressions. And I noticed that after, months and months of not doing my offerings and thinking like, oh, I wonder what I'm going to be like. But just the process of, my journey with motherhood, whatever was going on, I actually began excelling in how I offered, if that makes sense. So my creations were actually far more advanced than when I stopped. And so this feeling of perhaps, even if it feels like you haven't been developing something for many years, you may surprise yourself if you move through that block. So let's explore. I'd love for you to explore. I keep kicking down. I'd love for you to explore writing, and maybe even using writing as an opportunity and outlet to write to your future self, or write a message from your future self, which is always really fun. So a message from your future self expressing how they feel about being in this life that they've created for themselves, the friendships, or you can get really into details. And I love this art of manifesting, where you kind of start with what you're grateful for, and you can do it in the future as though it's already happened. So I'm so grateful that these experiences have happened, or I'm in this beautiful home. And if you want to give as many details, you can, or if you just want to get to the feeling, which is really almost the root of successful manifestation, is how to get to the feeling of what that is, and letting the mind has a certain role in manifesting, but then it's the feeling that is almost, the word I'm hearing is archival, even though I don't think that's even appropriate. So I'm going to leave it at that for you, my dear. And I would love to hear if you can write some of how you feel in the future, assuming that you're, from a perspective that just say that everything, that your life has become very clear, that you've gotten the direction, whatever that is, like really exploring that, where you're desiring to be in the future from a future perspective. And you can also kind of go into a bit of like it can be almost an oracle process. I've written some future things before and given myself dates saying, I'm so grateful this happened. Like one of them was, I wrote when I was going to meet my husband, and so grateful this happened at this date, and I forgot about it. And then sure enough, I met him around within a week of the date I'd given. So that's a little suggestions. And thanks for asking. Blessings to your path, my dear. All right, let's see if we have any more questions. And if you've sent me a question and I'm not seeing it, because right now I am not seeing anyone's question, I probably have room for one more question. Or I can just sing a little intermission song and then close this portal. I feel like I don't, unless another maybe just a transmission for whoever's watching. So let's start with a little song. Err on the side of passion, that caution may find its course, and the reasons that you find beauty are not because you're lost. So live your life like it matters to the earth and our home, and dream upon your platter that it's full and abundant with what you need. Dope. All right. So I think I'm just going to do a little transmission because I'm not getting any questions right now. I don't think there's many people left, so it's just the last little transmission for the day before winding up. It is in the silence that the world offers you. The silence of connections, the silence of actions and activities. That silence that coats life. That reminds you from where you have come. That the busyness of life exploring and expressing itself exists beside this silence, this stillness, this expansive, almost void-like presence. And it's up to you to understand, is that the direction you are desiring to move into? Are you seeking to reach that feeling of silence and stillness, of expansive void-like presence? Or are you seeking to reach the life, the activity, the action? A lot of the time, what we notice is people in their desires to buy land, to have home, to reach this result, if they were to strip away what they thought that looked like, all that would be left would be that stillness, that silence, that inner translucent presence. It is not turned into anything. It is not reflecting itself as something upon itself. That moment, that pure bread with oneness in its simplicity is in fact much of where people are desiring to find themselves. So what can you do in your life now to create more moments of silence and stillness? What is inhibiting your capacity to turn off all the switches that are like lights in your mind? What to do, who to do it with, what to say, what to create, when to be somewhere, when to apologize, when to invite. These are all like lights in the mind. And to find that stillness, to find that silence, it's important for you to learn how to turn off these lights. Let your nervous system relax. And then perhaps one by one, allowing the simplicity that builds slowly upon itself. Just like that simplicity that is a seed, slowly building into a great abundant tree of life. For so many people, we see, find themselves with a great tree, with so many responsibilities and objectives, that it's hard to remember or understand, when was that tree, that seed in my life? When can I revert to that simplicity while remaining in integrity with my purpose in this life? And that we'd like to share with you is something that can happen on a daily basis with how you practice turning off those lights. Taking your consciousness into a room of expansive void-like silence. And then when you're ready, go back to the same door into the life you've created. Thank you. Blessings, everyone. And thank you all for popping on. I was about to end, but it looks like we have one more question. All right, so this is from Donnie. Will I be able to correct my nervous system? Let's see. The first thing I'm seeing is actually like they're saying like show your nervous system light, but I'm almost wondering if there's almost like if it's sunlight or if there's this way of like the image I'm seeing is like if you're able to even have your back exposed, like assuming that you're in a nice hot spot, or warm spot, maybe under the shade of a tree. But the sun is important. Like they're showing this image of actually letting the sun. There's something about the warmth and the sun. And so not like the blazing hot day, but that part of your nervous system relaxing is feeling this warmth and this energy from the sun, kind of like melting it away. And they're also showing me like there's points on the bottom of your feet. So I don't know if this is like this could be if you have any acupuncture friends even that want to go on a little adventure into some beautiful sunspot where you could just receive and have these almost these release points. And I'm hearing like kidney and gallbladder, muscle, but this is very specifically on the bottom of the feet. I don't even know if that's acupuncture, it might be acupressure. These points that'll help you like unravel because there is something about moving the energy down through your legs that's important because it can get stuck to say like mid chest and up. And so this unraveling is also allowing this almost this expansive breath that can take this energy out through the bottom of your feet. And that there's different ways of doing that, but yes, you can support and the correcting and the realigning and the relaxing and the softening of your nervous system, but those are a few suggested ways of doing so. That's a little quickie right there. Thanks, Donnie. And thank you all for coming on and watching. And if this is you watching the recording, then thank you so much too for taking the time to just be with these transmissions. And I look forward to however and whatever questions we come on next. So this is every Wednesday at 2:30 Pacific Standard Time. So that's like California, Oregon, that side of the country of Canada, and I'm in BC, Canada. So beautiful, beautiful day or night or evening. I know we had somebody from the UK here today. We got people all over. So until next, aloha. Aloha, Donnie. Bye-bye, everyone.